hello from New York City, I say. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to Yellowdig's November office hours session. I'm Bob Erdischek. I'm Yellowdig's Senior Community Success Consultant, along with Brian Verdine, our Vice President of Academic Product Engagement. And as you know, since you're here, this is a session where many of you have submitted questions in advance, and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions as well as we go through the session. A couple other things. Brian, why don't we go to the next slide just because I don't remember what's on that. Okay, never mind. And so we're going to also share some resources. We'll go through some of the recent improvements and coming improvements in the platform as well. And of course, the primary function here is that we want to help you out, answer any questions that you might have, whether it's regarded to the pedagogy or the technology or just general questions about how you might get the most out of using Yellowdig for yourselves and your students. So with that being said, I'm going to do the formal part of my introduction now. So those of you who don't know who I am, understand why it's me talking to you, and then Brian will do the same. Again, I'm Bob Erdischek, Senior Community Success Consultant, and I come from a higher education background. Before the turn of the century, I transitioned from a law career into teaching. And at about 2001, I started working as an instructional technologist, faculty developer, where I was assisting instructors back then, helped creating their distance learning courses, but also back then, even adding elements, online elements to face-to-face courses, an early sort of blended learning, hybrid learning type of environment. And while I found the promise of online learning to be really powerful, I didn't think that the tools or the pedagogy really led to building the kind of learning community, the kind of student engagement that I was looking for. So I went back to teaching, and I taught political science for over a decade. And in that time, I tried all kinds of crazy tools like AOL Instant Messenger and Facebook and Twitter and weird blog things and all kinds of other stuff in my own classes. And they came with their own set of problems. So when I found Yellowdig, it really ticked the boxes of what I was looking for. And now I'm happy to help with best practices and working one-on-one or with your departments, your colleagues in helping you get the most out of Yellowdig. Brian?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Yellowdig's VP of Academic Product Engagement. I started with Yellowdig quite a while ago now, about 3.5 years ago, doing research on the platform. My background is in psychology and education, and I did a little bit of teaching as well, but I really came in and did a lot of the research on the platform, figuring out best practices, figuring out settings and how to get instructors interacting in these communities to the best effect. So that's how I approach a lot of the question and answering that's happening here, and possibly as people start asking some other questions, I can share some data or research that we've done on the platform. My role with Yellowdig now is continuing to do a lot of that research, helping instructors get started, and also running the support operation.
Wonderful. And speaking of support, I think that's where we should go next. Let's make sure that everyone knows how to answer their own questions when they have them. Of course, we're available as well. But the first thing we want to point you to is the Yellowdig knowledge base, and that's help.yellowdig.co. And it's really a well-organized website that is going to have answers to almost all of your Yellowdig questions, and they're going to be easy to find too, including how-to guides, pedagogy talk, and just general things. For example, there's language that you can insert in your syllabus to describe Yellowdig. Would be one of the other items that is in there. And so again, you can go to help.yellowdig.co, but this is also available now in the platform, as Brian is showing on this slide on the right. There is a little question mark that appears in the bottom left above your avatar and above your organization settings. And if you click on that, you will get the knowledge base basically. And you can do a search there to find a particular item that you're looking for, or you can just browse the help opportunities there. One thing that you won't be able to see here is that if you scroll down just a bit in that where it says help topics, you're going to get a direct link to notify our support of an issue that they need to assist you with.
Yeah, and the other place there is a contact us is at the top of the knowledge base window right here, which links to a form that you can reach out to support as well. So, if you're in the platform, that'll be the fastest way to reach support. If you're just at a website or whatever at the help.yellowdig.co, you can find that at the top.
And by the way, that in the platform view is pretty new, like the last month or so. So if you haven't noticed that before, just take a look. It's down at the bottom left. Moving on, another opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about the platform and understand a little bit more about our pedagogy and how you might best take advantage of the platform is to go to Yellowdig Learn, and that's learn.yellowdig.co, where there are a number of courses, quick courses, generally speaking. Not generally speaking, they're all quick courses that you can take to enhance your Yellowdig arsenal. And the instructor certification course, I hope many of you have already taken. There's a course on STEM use. There's a course on facilitators that's primarily directed at people who are not designing the course but are just jumping in to teach it. There's a course on Yellowdig data analytics. Is that one up and running?
I believe so, yeah.
And there's also a course on the organizational settings in Yellowdig. And what I mean by that is how your institution would separate and host Yellowdig courses so that they're easy to find and that you can find particular types of data in them. So that's, again, learn.yellowdig.co. I think we can move on. And of course, a couple other things. If you want, you can just talk to me, bob@yellowdig.com. That's BOB@yellowdig.com, not too hard. And you got a little QR code there. So if you want to whip out your phone and scan that, it'll take you directly to the main instructor certification course that I urge you all to either take or have taken. All right, let's give them a second to look at that, and then we can just move right on. All right, and finally, you're always welcome to send an email to support@yellowdig.com if you have any issues. Your students are also able to do this, support@yellowdig.com, if they have problems logging in or anything like that. And that is probably, in addition to those two links we shared earlier in the knowledge base and in the widget on the platform, are the best ways to get help, the best and quickest way to guarantee that you're going to get a quick answer to what you're doing. The knowledge base we already shared. Obviously, you're sitting here in monthly office hours. We have one more scheduled for December, and we're going to schedule them through the next year as well. So I hope you'll continue to join us. And finally, the Yellowdig Instructor Support Community, the YISC, a place where you can go, be a member of the community, interact with other instructors from around the globe, and also see relevant Yellowdig news there. We're in there too, answering questions, and we'll be putting a lot more information in there as the days go by. All right.
Okay.
So, you got questions? We got answers, maybe. No, I'm pretty sure we did. So there were a number of questions submitted in advance, so we can talk about those. Some we'll spend more time on, others we will spend less time on, but then we will be happy to get to your questions as well. And again, as I promised, we will also go through some of the newer features and the coming soon features in Yellowdig. So this first question, Brian, is about understanding how points work and when they're attributed to a student's score. And I think it's a really good question. I think it's important that people understand that, especially instructors and students, and I want to empower them to know it and also to find out where they can go to see those types of things. So let's start with that. Brian, when are points, when do I earn my points?
Yeah, so points in Yellowdig are always earned whenever the action happens that would generate them. So, we can see what those actions are by going to how to earn points underneath of the point widget there. And you can see how students will earn points in this course. So if somebody creates a post, they'll earn their 280 points at the time that they make that post. If a user comments on that post later, and you have that point rule set up, the student will get those 70 points at the time the other student made the comment, right? And that could be at any time throughout the course as that's happening, right? So one interesting thing about the weekly breakdown in Yellowdig is that you're not actually filling like buckets of points. And I try to, a lot of people use a model that is similar to like a standard weekly assignment where you have to do a certain number of things to kind of earn those points for that week. And then they wouldn't carry over or they wouldn't, be earned towards the total for the full semester. But Yellowdig is based around trying to get a full goal for the whole semester, a certain total number of points. And every point that's earned goes onto that total. The weeks are just a limit so that students can't get too many points all in one week and kind of have to spread out their participation.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I just want to add two things. First of all, if you do have any new questions, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen right there. You can also put them in the chat, but it's probably a little easier if we put them in the Q&A. We'll be able to follow them a little better. But the second thing I wanted to point out is why that's the case, why points are attributed when they are. And that's because Yellowdig conversations really have the ability to be evergreen and to ebb and flow with what's important and relevant as what's going on in the class. And we may have started a conversation 2 weeks ago, but it may become relevant again. And so we're encouraged by having students rejoin those conversations and get rewarded for their participation in those conversations that are still relevant, even though we talked about them for a period of time. So yeah, the points, the best way to look at it is the points are attributed when they are earned. And I believe that goes the same for accolades, the instructor awarded badges that provide points. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, yep. Any point adjustment, change, point earning that the student triggers, through their behavior, all of those things are going into the point system, adding into the point system at the time that those are made.
David, I'm seeing your question, unresolved scoring issues and working with support has not been corrected. If you're working with our support, do you know if the ticket is attributed to you? We would certainly like to investigate that further to find out what the issue is and help you resolve that. You can send an email. Well, if you've already contacted support, okay, thank you. So we'll look for that ticket and see what we can do about that. If you have any more information you want to share about that, that's also fine. All right. The next question, shall we move on to the next question?
Well, I think just to make sure that we fully address that. So what that means is that, if a student is participating, in the third week, there's not really a notion that they have to fill that first week's worth of points, right? They have to get to their total goal for the semester. And as long as you provided a buffer for those students, they probably can catch up. If you want to award them points so that they don't have to try to catch up to fill in earlier weeks, you can add points, onto a student's total. Student's total within the data report area. So I just wanted to show that really quick. You will be able to see a log of every student activity that has earned points, but you can also add and subtract points from within that point report to be able to sort of catch a student up, so maybe they don't have to work harder if they started a class late or something like that.
Brian, if you scroll down to Tom's student, I believe there. Yep, at the very bottom, and click that log. I want to point out how it looks. If you scroll down, right there, this is how it looks if you use the point management button to reduce points for a particular student. It will show up right in the point log and show them that those points have been deducted and the reason why.
Yeah, and if you add them, you can also give a reason, so those will show up in their log.
And students see that as well as you. But they only see their own. You get to see everyone's. Let's be clear about that. All right. So I see that Megan's asked a bunch of questions in the Q&A. Let's continue to address the ones we got in advance. I think that's the fairest way to do it. And then we'll come back to Megan's questions.
Yep. So one of the questions was asking for a refresher on how to integrate Yellowdig within a course. We don't really want to take the time to specifically address a single learning management system just because everybody is obviously using different learning management systems. But we are happy to get on a call to talk about that. So the other thing I wanted to do is just share with everybody the integrations knowledge base articles that will step you through how to integrate Yellowdig with the different knowledge based things. If you're on the call and you want to schedule a session to go over the integration, please just also reach out to my email, brian.verdine@yellowdig.com.
Yep, and yeah, okay. Let's move on there. Okay. Well, let me read. I'll read this one and you can do the fun part. Would you please let us pin more than one topic? We want to pin help forum through the course and weekly discussion prompt for a week. If not, can we as an instructor get some privilege to choose 3 topics to appear on the right side so that students can click anytime and follow the topic? And I think we can address some of those things pretty easily as the platform is right now. Brian?
Yeah, so I think one thing that definitely we're accepting a lot of feedback on the pin to top feature, and we've been talking about some ways to address that function. So one of the specific things that people are asking for is to be able to pin more things than one to the top. Looking at it from the student perspective, however, we've gotten a lot of feedback that students don't like the pin to the top because once they've seen it, they don't want it to be there all the time, every time they sign in. So we do recommend sort of judicious use of the pin to the top functionality from the student perspective. And one of the ways that we've been talking about addressing that in the platform is to allow instructors to pin multiple things to the top, but to allow students to dismiss those things and shuffle them back into the community feed once they've seen it, so that both sides can kind of achieve the goals that they want to. And I guess I'm not sure if the person that asked this question is on the call, but I would love to have feedback around whether that approach seems like it would work to solve the need here, and whether people generally think that would be a good way to handle that. I can't say for sure when we'll be able to make those adjustments, but we have been talking about them, and we'll be probably pursuing those in the near-term future. So any feedback that we can get would help us make sure that any changes we make are actually going to really be useful for everybody.
Brian, let's go into the platform because I want to address some things that will solve some of this issue right now as far as this goes. So this community is not the ideal community to look at because it is not an active community. It's a demo community because obviously we don't want to be sharing live student data with people outside of the institution. But normally what you will see, no, go back to the community, please.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to anticipate what you were going to talk about.
Normally, one thing that you'll see, you'll notice right under where it says set up your community, there's a box that says topics. And what that is the trending topics area. And basically what you're going to see there are the top 5 most posted to topics in any particular 7-day period. So what's today? Today is Wednesday. Wednesday to Tuesday, and then the following Wednesday, and then Thursday it'll change to Thursday. But basically, the past 7 days, you'll see the most popular topics. Those are going to be live links to those topics, as all topic tags are. So one other way to get back to where you need to go is to click on any particular topic tag that you want, and you'll easily get to filter the feed to show only those posts and comments under that topic. And then one other way is the filtering. You want to show that, Brian, how we can get to a particular topic by filtering? So you just simply either click on the name of the topic, or you go in and you choose the topic that you want to be filtered. But beyond that, and now is when I'd like you to go back into the topic settings, there is a relatively new option in Yellowdig that allows you as the instructor to reorder topics. And I really like this a lot. So for example, if you wanted help, I'm sorry, what was it again? It was help forum to be regularly available and easily available to students. You could create that topic and move it to the top. And also you can make it so that topics are required, which we would encourage, basically meaning that anytime a student tries to complete the posting exercise, they will not be allowed to do a post until they choose at least one topic. And if you move that help forum to the top, they're always going to see that right first. And you can move those anytime you wish. Some instructors regularly reorder the topics to focus on the topic that they want to have the students engage with at any particular time. And as Brian's showing, you can also disable topics. In other words, the topic won't disappear from the feed, but students will no longer be able to post to it. So you'll still be able to find those conversations. The data will all still be collected for those particular conversations under that topic. Students just won't have the option to use that when they're creating a new post. So I think whoever asked this question, that if you move your help forum to the top of the topics list in the settings on topics, you will be doing a great job of putting it front of mind for students when they're creating a post.
And I think that somewhat answers Megan's question about topics for a given period. The best way to do that is to enable and disable topics. There is this remove button, and I guess I just want to highlight for everybody. Typically, once you are using a topic in a community and it has any data associated with it, you wouldn't want to remove it because it removes the topic from the community entirely and from any post that it was attached to. So you also kind of lose the association and lose the date. If you want to make them not selectable, but not lose that data and not lose the tags that have already been affixed, just disable it here.
All right. We've only got a few more of the pre-submitted questions, and one of them we actually kind of answered a little bit already. But let's go through those really quickly, and then we can get to Megan's questions and the other questions more fully. So another professor writes, I gifted some points to a few students. When I added the points to their bank, I wrote a message giving them the reason for the points. The students were not aware of the transaction. Is there a way to have the system send an alert to students when I add or take away points? Did it send an alert to them that we just couldn't find? And as we showed you before, the student will always know if you did add or subtract points by going into the My Participation area. In fact, you'll be able to see it in the data under reports, but the student will be able to see it at the bottom of the Yellowdig point modal. You want to show them, Brian? Where that activity log is for students?
Oh, sorry.
That's my bad.
I was trying to read a question.
Okay.
Yes.
And
so students can see everything about their participation in that My Participation area, either here on the left or underneath the point modal. This will show them their point earning, as they're progressing through the course. One of my favorite things to show students and instructors is this graph that shows point earning over time, because I think it's a really good model for how the Yellowdig point system really works. Essentially, these dots are the weekly targets that students have to achieve. And as long as they earn enough points to be above those targets, their grade is going to stay at 100%. They're going to be on track to get to that course total at the end. And if they're falling below that, their grade will fall below 100%, and they will have to try to catch up and speed up to catch up. And so that's kind of a good representation of point earning over time. And the goal is just to kind of stay on or above that straight line. But as Bob was saying, the point log will also appear here at the bottom for students.
And students will see those point additions
Yeah.
or subtractions with the date attributed to them and all that kind of fun stuff. All right. So the final question that we got submitted in advance is kind of an interesting one. Well, it's kind of a vague one, I guess. It's getting started. How to convert my class blog into a Yellowdig discussion. And I think maybe while talking about this, we can also address Megan's questions in general by talking sort of about what we're trying to do in Yellowdig altogether, and why Yellowdig is set up the way it's set up, why it's designed to have these topics and to have only one single assignment over the course of an entire semester, and to encourage to give points for certain types of activities that students do, like that they get points when someone reacts to their post or when someone comments on their post. So we should do that. I think I have a quick question that I want to answer for Jeannie really quickly about once we set up topics in one semester's class, can the topics be transferred to future semesters? And the answer is absolutely yes. You will notice that any community that you own, if you start a new community, at the bottom of the basics area, or when you're starting the community, you will have the option. Actually, she's asking for the settings only, it appears.
Yeah, I mean, both of the template is one. The template link is one way to, in the community creation, be able to copy settings or content from an existing community. But I can also show how you can
copy content.
Yeah.
I mean, settings, excuse me. But yes, it's pretty easy. You click create community, and one of your choices as you scroll down is to copy settings. Not let's do settings, because let's be clear about that, from the previous community. And there's a little tooltip there that'll tell you exactly what you're copying over. I believe it's points, accolades, and topics. And obviously not dates, because dates change. All right.
Yeah, and just to give an idea, that template link essentially fills in from any given community. So if you are trying to share, as a course designer, share a specific configuration with other people, that template link is a great way to do that, because I could give this template link to Bob. He could create a community, insert the template link, and be able to copy that community even if he doesn't own it.
And the template link will share the settings and the community owner posts as well.
But you can also disable those if you don't want one of them, right? So that's the way that works.
Excellent. All right, so let's get back to that last question about converting class to a Yellowdig discussion, and also Megan's questions, which I think will all go together. And Brian, I think if you go to the Yellowdig, the traditional discussion assignment slide versus Yellowdig.
Yes, I was thinking about that. Yeah, okay.
I think that's probably where we want to talk about this. And Megan, I know you may have heard this before, but I want to talk about it again as sort of the foundation of what we're trying to do. And the first and foremost thing we're trying to do is we're trying to make conversations that are organic, that students enjoy, where they learn from each other, as opposed to the tick the box checking of the one post, two comments, assignment, weekly assignment, that students know they're only going to come into those discussions at the end of the week when that assignment is due, and there aren't really great conversations happening there. And I guess we'll just talk through this one. And Brian, you usually do this one, so
Yeah. So, based on our research and some early experiments with the platform, what we found is that this framework is a little bit of the problem in terms of getting students actually interacting. And if you and it's comes down to a lot of their behavior patterns and what that results in. But basically, your go-getter students come in at the beginning of the week and they try to get a conversation started, but there's nothing there, and their only option is to respond to the instructor. So they respond to the instructor with a post that speaks to the instructor, but not to the actual rest of the audience of the class. And they also learn that they can't finish their assignment or there's nothing there to talk about. So they actually start procrastinating more and more towards the end of the week, right? And so when you follow a prompted structure where students are expecting that they're coming in to answer a question or something like that, they'll tend to procrastinate significantly more. And if you think about then that experience for those students that are procrastinating and coming in at the end of the week, they don't have time to actually interact and have a good conversation with these other students before the next week starts and they have to just move on to the next assignment. So what ends up happening is students just respond to each other with a couple of quick comments, but they never actually have a back and forth conversation before that conversation is cut short by the end of that assignment. And so that framework has a couple of real challenges, but these procrastinating students are literally not having a social interaction because nobody is ever responding to them. They're only responding to other people. Um, and so overall, what we're trying to do is find ways to, you know, um, avoid some of those problems with this framework.
I just want to add a couple of quick things. First of all, when this is the framework, students view this as assignment, and even if they're not intending to procrastinate, they do it when it's due. I've got this assignment for my prompt. It's due on Sunday, so I'll do it Sunday night after football, and because I've got other things to do first. I've got to write a different paper in a different class or something like that. So it's, by its very nature, it encourages, well, procrastination and inorganic discussions, because all these conversations are really directed at the instructor. And what kind of natural conversation has everybody saying the same thing to the instructor, or everyone addressing the same thing? That's not a natural conversation. So Yellowdig is very different. And what we're trying to do here, and Megan, to your questions about, we don't view conversations as being tied to a particular week. Certainly, we understand that in courses, you're spending time on particular topics at particular times, but that those topics should still be available to students. We believe that those topics should still be available to students to interact as something relevant is going on in the real world related to them. I'll give you a quick example. My own classes teaching American government. In week 2, we talk about the Electoral College. We start to talk about the Electoral College. Last year, I guess, there was a presidential election. If in week 6 of my course, the Electoral College is meeting, do I want my students to reflect on that and say, oh, I saw that this was happening. This one state did something with their certification of electoral votes. I want them to be able to re-engage in there because it's good for them. It makes the content more real to them. And it's good for me because I can see if they've got it or not, and I can course correct before the end of the semester. So certainly in Yellowdig, you're free to ask questions and whenever you wish. We would encourage you not to ask them on a weekly cadence, because that's going to get into that whole idea that they have to be there at a particular time, right? And remember also that Yellowdig is a single assignment over the course of the entire semester. Students are trying to need to earn their entire Yellowdig point complement by the end of the semester. As Brian mentioned before, the weekly sort of structure is only there to require them to constantly come back into the community on a regular basis. So all that being said, I hope that clarifies sort of the idea that we're not looking to create strictly prompted communities that have a weekly cadence. Again, you can make any questions you want, but I would also encourage you, if you're going to go that route, and have some sort of prompts to add optionality to those, to give students the option to either post their own post or comment on someone else's, rather than everyone trying to start a conversation on the same topic. In addition to that, give them options to answer different questions as well. One great thing about Yellowdig and the social points, one thing that, and maybe this will also answer David's question a little bit more, in the social Yellowdig points, we have commenting worth at least as much or more per word than posts. And this is super important, because if everyone tries to start a conversation, then we just have a bunch of performative posting that people put on the wall and never read. But when students are incented or feel more comfortable in answering or contributing to that conversation in an ongoing way, it can be super, it's a great way to have ongoing, organic, course-related, topic-related conversations, as opposed to just posts. And Megan, I hope this is answering most of what you're asking here. Brian, is there anything else you want to add to that, specific to the actual 3 questions that Megan put?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things we can go into in specifics in the platform to answer a couple of those questions. But I do think the one thing that I would invite everybody to think about in terms of what's going to provide the best experience for Yellowdig, what's going to get students learning the most, what is going to sort of be the most fun and interesting to you and them, is to focus on getting good conversations going and focus less on students posting quality content. And I say that because if you focus students on posting too much, they make a bunch of posts that they don't talk about, right? And one thing that we want students to do is, have a couple of shared posts that are interesting, that they can read, think about, and then discuss back and forth, right? And that may not require as many posts as it does comments. So I would focus a lot more on getting students to comment, to read the things that are being posted, and to focus on the discussion as the part of this whole exercise that you try to encourage the most. And one way you can do that is by primarily interacting with students in conversation, rather than posting and telling them, talk about this, talk about this, talk about this. So we see a clear correlation between student interactions and use of the platform and how much their instructors are commenting. We do not see that same correlation between how much students use the platform and how much instructors are posting. The other thing that I would add is it's the consumption of content where most of the learning happens. It's the consumption and conversation around it. So you want students to be reading the posts and thinking about them. And one way to ensure that is to, encourage students to post really thoughtful, interesting things with the point structure, and then, as I said, focusing on the conversation as the important piece. Certainly in communities with more comments, there's actually more reading. We can see like post views from the platform.
Before we leave this, Megan's third question goes to the number of points. And Brian, I'd like you to discuss why our Yellowdig points by default, we set it at 1,000 per week as opposed to some lower number.
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons that we do that. The number one thing is that our grade passes back to the learning management system as a percentage. And so there is a conversion almost no matter what between how many points are in Yellowdig and the course points that are set up in the learning management system. And that conversion happens through a percentage. And so we think that, first of all, it's actually less confusing if you use a different currency, so that students realize that Yellowdig points are being converted into the points that they're being awarded in the course. A couple of other reasons just have to do with sort of like gamification and people liking to earn more points. It's kind of more exciting to get 1,000 points than 100. But the other really important reason, if you think about the fact that most courses are, 10 to 15 weeks, and there's at least 5 different types of point earning rules in Yellowdig, if you only have 50 or 100 points to allocate to a full semester, you can't really fine tune how much those different categories are worth in the point system. So that's why we configured it to be 1,000 points per period. And why the point values are kind of as high as they are. The important thing in terms of student behavior is the relative value of the different earning rules.
Let's go back into the platform.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to go do. So the important thing in terms of the earning rules is the relative value of these rules compared to each other, right? So, it doesn't matter necessarily that this is 280 points total, but you would want, comments to be worth as much or more per word than posts, right? So the relative value of these different categories is really what controls whether students, post more or comment more, whether they kind of feel that trying to get reactions is worthwhile doing. If reactions in this model were only worth 5 points and they have to get 1,000 points per week, they need a whole bunch of reactions to get any real progress towards their total. So if you scale up the total points that students have to go for, scale up the point rules accordingly, or scale them down if you want to scale them down.
So all that being said, yeah, you're free to change the points any way you want. What we have is our default points, which we know work, which we have data to support. But if you wanted to change your own points, you would go to settings, point system, and points earning rules, and click edit.
So when a course is in progress, you can change any of the point earning rules that you want, and they only apply going forward. So if you do want to increase the value of a post for 1 week, or you want to experiment a little bit as the course is going because you figured you want to get a few more comments, you want to give more points for comments or something like that, you can change the rules. It will update for students, and that's fine. If you're configuring things before a course, you can select from a sort of standard recipe, if you will, for point earnings. This is what we would generally recommend for a 3-credit course that's using Yellowdig for about 10% of the grade, of the course grade. If you want something a little bit more intensive or a little bit more casual, there are some other options there. If you want to fully configure everything, you can select custom settings here. And this will show you what the current settings are, but you can go into our standard old setup experience to be able to fully configure the individual period target, the buffer, and any of those earning rules that you like.
Can you go back to the points, the display of how points are earned, because I want to answer David's question really quickly. David asked, regarding points for participation, is there a difference between earning points for commenting on a post or versus replying for a post? So in our defaults with social points set up, let's talk about exactly how those work. So students get points for creating content. If you create a post, and you meet the minimum word count, you get a certain number of points. If you create a comment that meets the minimum word count for comments, you get a certain number of points as well. It's a different number of points, generally speaking. Okay. And so whether you're commenting on a post or replying to someone else's comment, that is going to count the same as the comments. They're going to get the amount of points for commenting. That's how that's going to work. Okay. What changes though is what changes things is the social points, those points below that, and I want to make sure you have a clear understanding of those. The social points are points that you receive when someone else comments on your post or replies to someone commenting on your post, or someone gives you a reaction. Okay, those are additional points awarded to the person who either posts in the case of comments, or posts and comments in the case of reactions. And of course, those reactions indicate that people are interacting with the content, that they're reading the material that's going on in the feed, and they really also make students feel good that they're getting them as well. So I hope that answers that.
Yeah, so David, just to, as directly as possible, respond also to that. In our system, comments and replies, in terms of the point earning for them, are functionally the same. They're all considered comments, for the purposes of point earning.
All right, and then Nicole asks, is there a way to set up extra credit for students who exceed the total number of points for the semester? So Yellowdig is a single assignment, and again, it's not really a complete assignment until the end of the semester. Certainly, students have the ability to earn over their point target if you have the buffer engaged, if you turn on the buffer. If you don't turn on the buffer, then it is impossible for students to earn over their point goal. But as far as the gradebook entry for Yellowdig, I suppose you could manually adjust it, or perhaps a better option is to create a separate gradebook column for the extra credit.
Yeah, so because Yellowdig passes back its grade as a proportion, and that's really our only option to the learning management system, it's capped at 100% by the learning management system. So we can't enable people to have extra credit on an assignment through our system. So typically, I would just recommend that you create a second Yellowdig grade column and just add points on there, however many extra credit points you would want to give.
And you'll be able to see the total that they've gone over. You want to show?
Yeah, so I mean, in the point report, you can definitely see how many points students have earned, and they can exceed the total. The other places that you can see if there's specific things that you would want to specifically reward extra credit or kind of recognize as the course is going is to go into the member report area, which you can click on right here at the top. But when you generate that report, there's just a ton of things in here that will show up that would allow you to know how active a student really was, whether they're receiving comments and accolades and reactions from other people. I mean, I always recommend checking out this report as the community is going on, because you can get a lot of detailed information about any student. But you could certainly reward extra credit or bonus points or whatever throughout the course based on what students are doing. And I actually just want to highlight this because I just saw it. I think it's a pretty cool or interesting metric, right? But orphan posts in our system are posts that were never replied to or commented on. So ideally, we want students to be, when they're creating posts, to be having good conversations. If a student is accumulating a lot of orphan posts, it might be something you would want to check into. What is the nature of their posts? Is there feedback that you can give them to help them get some more conversation going, or whatever? But in our platform, with encouraging conversation, we hope that orphan posts stay as a low metric.
So Brian, we've got a little less than 10 minutes left. I think it's time. I mean, we're certainly open to more questions and you can keep them coming. But while we're waiting for more questions, why don't we jump to those slides about new and upcoming features?
Yep.
All right. So the first one is already there, and that is the cloud draft feature. And it probably does what you think it would do. And you want to just go back to the
Yeah, I
peppermint?
guess I should have.
Yeah,
uh,
that's all right.
Sorry. Yeah.
So yeah,
Go ahead.
so drafts are exactly what you think they are. You can start working on a post, and if you are called away, or if you want to save that post for later, you can simply click the X instead of post, and it will go into that little drafts folder. Like if any of you are on Gmail or any kind of Gmail to similar client, it's the same thing. If you close the draft instead of posting it, it'll show up in the drafts folder, and there'll be a little number there showing how many drafts you have, and then those will be available to you to use later whenever you want, and to manually publish them when you're ready to do so. Students have this as well. These are specific to you, to any particular individual. You will not have anyone else's drafts. They will not have your drafts. So these can be really useful as far as that goes. All right, what else were you going to show there? Anything else you wanted to mention about that?
Nope. I think the thing that's worth mentioning is, we really saw this as an opportunity to make sure students, especially those where maybe English is not their first language, or, students that want to make sure they've put in a lot of extra thought into it, or maybe they have trouble typing or whatever else, are able to really get back in and be able to participate and post something once they're comfortable with it. So that draft functionality, I think, is really helpful to students that might need a little bit more time to think about what they're doing, or if they just happen to run out of time and want to come back to it later.
All right, let's move on. We already mentioned that there's a facilitator training course that's at learn.yellowdig.co. And basically, again, that is directed at people who may not be the designer or the creator of the course, but are then being tasked with going into a course that's already been created and acting as the instructor or facilitator role in that course. And again, that's going to take less than an hour to complete, and hopefully it'll be really helpful for that. LTI 1.3. So for those of you who don't know, LTI stands for Learning Tool Interoperability, and it is the framework by which Yellowdig communicates with your learning management system. And LTI 1.3 is the new standard, which allows increased functionality. And that's about the limit of my ability to talk intelligently about LTI 1.3, but Brian can go a little bit further there.
Yeah, so for our Canvas clients right now, and we're extending it very soon, LTI 1.3 is available. So if you have any control over getting that implemented at your university and you want to talk to us about it, let's please do so. The exciting thing that I wanted to mention here specifically is the assignment provisioning that it will allow us to do. So the way that Yellowdig currently works with LTI 1.1, you have to have a graded assignment in Yellowdig, and in order for students' grade passback to function, they have to click in through that specific Yellowdig assignment link. And especially in Canvas, there is a sidebar link that you can add to Yellowdig that does
Brian,
not.
can you just hold on for 1 second, because David has a question that goes right to what you just said, and I want to make sure that he's clear on that. So if students are not getting their participation captured in the LMS gradebook, the likely cause is that they did not enter Yellowdig through that single assignment link that Brian just mentioned. And that's, again, a function of LTI 1.1, which most learning management systems are still connected to Yellowdig through. So, David, the likely solution is to have students, to make sure that those several students do click on that single assignment link. If they're having problems beyond that, please contact support@yellowdig.com, or have those students contact support@yellowdig.com.
Yeah. So, David, I don't know a lot about your specific case, but the nature of the problem that you're describing is something that's much more common in LTI 1.1 that this is specifically going to address. but it basically it allows us to create an assignment inside of the learning management system from our system. It also allows us to automatically retrieve the grade information for every student when they enter Yellowdig, no matter how they get there through the learning management system, so that we can be sure that we're passing the grade back into the proper grade column. Aside from all of the security improvements of LTI 1.3 and a number of other functions that will enable, one of those things is to really smooth out some of these grade passback issues. Um, so uh,
I just want to add
we're really looking forward to that.
We are looking forward to it, but I want to add that it's not a Yellowdig only thing. It's not like if we suddenly make that available, it happens. We have to coordinate with your IT team, and both teams need to set that up. It's not a lot of work, but it has to happen.
It requires a new integration.
Yeah. All right. So again, just a couple of minutes left. No point topics, and this might be something that a lot of people find pretty useful. The idea is that you can assign 0 points to posts that use specific topics. And this might be a great way to allow off-topic discussions in your courses without awarding them points, where students are still going to need to earn their points on the course relevant topics. So you could put a networking topic or a coffee shop, or what do you call it?
A lot of people do a coffee house kind of
Thank
topic.
you. Yeah. And that would do a great job of allowing that. And then finally, the idea of an @community mention. Right now, you have the ability to @mention any other Yellowdig user. Students can @mention you. You can @mention them to call their attention to specific posts or topics. And a lot of people have asked for the ability to call the attention of everybody in the community to a particular topic by and doing this @community will allow that. And what will happen if somebody uses that @community function? Brian, how will it work?
Yeah, we're expecting that to work, just that basically it would work the same way as doing an individual @mention, in that, every student in the community will receive a notification that you've mentioned them in a specific post, and they'll be able to click the permalink in that notification to be able to get directly to the post in the community. Right. We are not planning to enable that functionality for students necessarily. One specific reason is because if they @community everybody on all of their posts, they'll get more attention on their posts than other students, and we definitely think that students will just @community people on every single post.
So we are at time. We want to thank you all for coming. We're going to, at least I'm going to hang out if there are any more questions, but I'm going to stop the recording now. Well, in a second or two. I just want to remind you that we do have another session in December I had it up just a minute ago. Well, it's in December, and you'll be getting emails inviting you to that, and I hope you'll join us for that. Otherwise, again, thank you, and anyone who wants to hang out and ask any more questions, I'll be here. Brian, are you able to stick around?
Yeah, I can stick around for a few minutes.
Wonderful. And for those of you who are taking off, thanks for coming. Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone.